Well, this is that session where we get into, again, the foundation of any healthy relationship, meaningful communication. We're going to give you, right off, 5 levels of intimacy. And this was any relationship, parenting, marriage, friendship, at work. And we're going to give you 6 of the best methods that I know of communication that you can use anytime you want to move through these 5 levels down to the deepest level of intimacy. Now, you can use this information as soon as you've viewed it because it's practical, it's everyday, and I'm excited about it. So let's get right into it. Wonderful audience. Great group. Wonderful house. Good things. Wonderful audience. Great audience. Give me life. Thank you very much. Well, this is the session that I love to talk about because it's how to talk. It's communicating. It's deepening our ability to have meaningful conversations with our mate, our friends, our loved ones, at work. You can use any of this stuff at work. In fact, it will improve your chances of promotion when they see that you are a better communicator at work. That's been proven in study after study. So everything wins when you learn how to be a better communicator. Relationship becomes more healthy. Everything happens in a positive way. Well, that's what this is about. And of course, as you know, and I've said, I'm always trying to get my children to learn how to communicate and give them opportunities. And I want to give my kids the opportunity to work with me if they wanted to. And we can speak together at seminars and so on. And Greg and Michael have both shown that interest. And my oldest son, Greg, said to me one time, well, Dad, when are you going to let me do this then? And I said, well, you want to come and speak to a group like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and we can go over exactly what you want to talk about, of course. But if you'd like to share, I'd like to give you that chance because learning how to communicate to a crowd is helpful, and you don't get so nervous. And when you have a good communication with your wife, you don't get so nervous. And so he said, I'd like to do that. I said, well, work on something. He showed it to me, and I said, okay, why don't you come and do it after lunch? And I'll tell everybody about you, but you know, don't embarrass me, okay? And high five each other. And so he came, and I introduced him, and I was excited to be with him. And so he stood up, and he said, it's just such a privilege to be here speaking to you today and sharing my experiences. And I love being with my dad at times like this, especially when he's sober. And I thought, that was the introduction. So you can imagine what the rest of it was like. So like father, like sons and daughter. So the communication area is just so important. In fact, these videos and this whole experience has opened up a lot of doors and new opportunities for me. And I'm kind of excited to tell you and to have the first crowd to hear that I just signed my first contract with the Disney Channel. I'm real excited about that. Yep. I just ordered it for 1 month in our home. I know what you were thinking. See, that's miscommunication. If you had used the first method that I'm going to talk about, we wouldn't have had all this confusion. Well, what I want to do, and I know that the first thing that I'll be talking about is a whole seminar in itself and probably a whole course in college or high school in itself for sure. But I want to give you 5 levels of communication that we'll interject throughout this session. But these are the heart of healthy communication. When we go through these levels, and I'll just mention them, give a quick illustration because I want to get into the actual methods that you use to get to these 5 levels, because I'd love to have you right down to the most meaningful level every day. First one is when we share cliches. You know, like, hey, how are you? Give me 5. What's happening? Those are just cliches. None of us mean most of the things we say. And even when I'm pressured about something, and some clerk will say, hey, how you doing? Oh, great. It's all cliches. You don't really want to say I'm miserable today, and because then they get real serious and you have to talk for a while. So you just use the cliches. Second level, well, that's pretty safe, cliches. Second level, still pretty safe, is when you just share facts, just information. Give people facts. Hi, how are you? Guy, it's looks pretty wet today, doesn't it? Or what a clear day, just facts. Pretty shallow level, but safe. Third level is when we share our opinions. Now here's where it gets a little more unsafe. And we do go to this level, but here's what's interesting. The research shows that the majority of couples stay at these three levels. Cliches, hi hon, the weather's great today, right? And then we share a few opinions. Now conflict comes, if it's gonna come, it's gonna come right there. We share, so it's a little more unsafe, so we tend to maybe stay away from that area. But the deepest levels of communication is when we go right through that conflict and we go to, what are you feeling? Tell me what you're feeling, which is healthy. And the fifth level is tell me what you need. And you're safe in the environment to hear what you need and what your mate needs, or what your friend needs, what your employees need. See, there can be healthy and unhealthy in every organization. So we say, hi, how are you? Guy looks wet today. We say to our mate, hey, you're drenched. Why don't you ever remember to put your umbrella in the car? And your mate, that's the third level, because you're just sharing an opinion. You ought to keep your, it's my opinion that you ought to be a little more sharp and keep your umbrella in the car, don't you think? And so your mate drops to the fourth level and says, you know how I feel today? I feel like somebody ran over my foot at work. I mean, it's been a tough day. And now that little cute comment, you're standing on it. And so instantly you get to know the feelings. To go to the fifth level in a hurry, and this can happen in seconds, what do you need tonight? What would it take to make you feel like your foot is healed? What can we do tonight? What can I do? And if they say things like, you know what I need tonight? I don't really want to go to that thing we were planning to do. If that'd be okay, I'm just beat. I would love to just stay home. I'd love to hug, and I just want to be with you. I just want to talk and share and just be with you. And then but first I need to be alone for a while, just to relax and kind of cool down. Those are needs. And to have somebody in a safe environment say, hey, okay, let's do that. Now, I really wanted to go this thing, but we don't have to go tonight. We can go tomorrow night. What do you think? And if they say, no, I don't ever want to go again. I don't care about your needs. I just want you to think it might. We don't do that. If it's a mutual thing, it's both needs are expressed and you have that give and take and flexibility. And so that's the 5 levels. And I'm trusting that through this presentation that you can go into that 4th and 5th level more readily and more frequently. All right, here are a number of ways that we can enrich our communication anytime we want and jump into that 4th and 5th level. The first one is the best method that I've been taught by others and that we do as a couple, as a family, as an organization. It's the absolute best. I'm putting a lot of these in the food category to help us remember it. And not all of them, but most of them are. So this one is called drive-through talking.
Welcome to the Good Life Cafe. May I take your order, please?
I've just driven into one of the fast food restaurants. And I say, yeah, there's 4 of us in the car here, and I'd like to have 3 hamburgers, a cheeseburger, 3 Diet Cokes, 1 Pepsi, 3 fries, and an onion ring. Is that it, guys? Is that it?
We have 3 cheeseburgers, 1 hamburger, 3 malts, 1 Pepsi, 3 fries, and 1 order of onion rings.
Gang, is that what we ordered? Hey, I didn't order that. Let me try it over again. It was 3 hamburgers, 1 cheeseburger, 3 fries, an onion ring, 3 diets, and a Pepsi.
Okay, one more time, and I think I've got it. It's 3 hamburgers, 1 cheeseburger, 3 Diet Cokes, 1 Pepsi, 3 orders of fries, and 1 onion ring.
Got it. Thank you.
Drive-through, please.
We drive up to the window, and then what happens? Then you get your order, and you say, this isn't even close to what I ordered. Hey, would somebody get a clue in there? Have you ever had that frustrating experience from time to time? Yeah, we all have. But that's the best communication method I know of. So as often as you drive through one of those fast food places, do it in remembrance of this thought. This presentation. What it is drive-through talking, which means you give your order to someone, and then you wait to get it back exactly the way you ordered it. And if it's right, you say, yes, that's what I ordered. If it isn't, you say, no, that's not what I ordered. And you say it again. Like the time that I was, and these are not frequent times in the life of a man. Is this not true? I was jogging one day when I used to be jogging up to 5 miles a day. And during the jog, my mind wanders in a number of areas, and I was thinking to myself, why don't I do something loving for Norma today? You know, what a rare thought that can come to our mind from time to time. So I started thinking, what could I do for her? Well, we're going camping today. I have an idea. She loves to go to breakfast with Helen. I could volunteer to pack the camper. I could tell her she could go to breakfast, and when she gets home, we could jump in the camper and go to get the kids at school, and we're off. Now, I want to ask the guys, do you think that sounds like a pretty loving, sensitive thing? Yeah, it did to me. I didn't see anything wrong with it. So I come in the house, and I say to Norma, hey, and I'm sweating, you know, I got a surprise for you. And she says, what? I said, how would you like to go to breakfast with Helen? And I'll pack the camper. And then when you get back from breakfast, the camper's ready. We go pick the kids, and we go. What do you think? Is this sensitive or what? And she reacts to this. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how could you possibly react to this? So I'm irritated that you would react to such a loving thought. You know what she was thinking that I had premeditated? A creative way to get her out of the house so I could finally pack the camper in the right way. It's so far from my personality. You know, I was really irritated. And I felt like saying, yeah, okay, you pack the camper, I'll go to breakfast with Helen. You ever had those feelings? When you're trying something that's really, you think is loving, and they nail you for it. Well, that would have all been eliminated if she would have said, now let me understand, you're saying that you wanted to pack the camper, you're trying to do something nice for me, and you want me to go to breakfast with Helen, and when I get back, it's all done. I'd say, yeah, that's exactly it. Because that's what I was thinking. Now, if she had said, but now, are you really thinking that you wanted to get me out of here so you can pack for the right night? I could say, no, that wasn't what I was thinking. That's not the order I made. And it eliminates so many unnecessary hostile times around the house when we take the time to repeat back what we have, what we think we've said. I'm going to actually have you practice this right here, right on the spot. Married or single, turn to the person. If you've not met the person next, you can quick listen or drive-through talk with them just to find out who they are and where they live and so on. Dr. Dallas Dimon is the one that really gave me this information, and one of the experts in our country. And so I want you to practice, because if you can practice it, it'll help you remember a lot better. Here's what I'd like to have you do. One of two things. Either share how you feel about this session, or share what you would like to get out of a session like communication. What's one thing you'd like to get out of this? Say it to your mate or your friend, have them repeat it back, and then you reverse it. You say one of those things, have them repeat it back, and then it'll be fixed in your mind a little more permanent if you practice it right on the spot. So on your mark, get set, go. All right, you're doing great. What an active, alive group. Now, you did well. So now see how easy it is to do this method. Now, the reason I had you practice this, because I was with a couple this summer that's been married over 20 years, never once in their life have they ever tried this. So that they actually sat together, started practicing it. And so I don't assume people just do this type of thing automatically, but it is the best method that I'm aware of to enrich your level of understanding. Now, there are some real specialties in this method of communication where you can literally learn, because I know of couples that have done this, a couple right down here has done this, where they can take 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes maybe at the most, where they actually talk to the other person for 20 minutes and the other person doesn't interrupt. And then after that 20 minutes, the other person gets 20 minutes to respond and share what they feel and need. I mean, I have never done that. With my personality, I can hardly concentrate, past 2 minutes. So what we do is just enough sentences that I can repeat them back. So you have to teach each other how to do it. Otherwise, you'll tend to go on and on. So just stop your mate or your friend and say, hold it, this is all I can contain here. Let me say these things back to you and see if I got these right. And then you can continue. So that's the best method I know of. Now, the next communication method is the best method that I know of in training children. It's the best method I know of in having a mutually satisfying marriage. If you will do this, I can't give you a 100% guarantee, but I can assure you that your relationship will be more enriched as soon as you do this than anything else you've done. Because it is the basis, as you'll see in a few moments, as to why our country is so strong and why it tends to remain strong. If you'll look around, the strong organizations in our world are doing the thing I'm going to recommend for you to do right in your own home, right with your mate, your children, your employees, city government. I mean, they all do it. There's not a person here who's employed with an important job that you see as important that you aren't doing this right now. And you'll see how it goes. I call it the relationship menu. Now, what is the relationship menu? And I already ordered from the Good Life Cafe. Every marriage and friendship and parenting relationship and business and whatever and government can do this. This is what I call my menu. My wife and I wrote our own personal menu for our relationship. We order off of the menu every day. It's our menu. We created it, and we know how delicious it is for us. It fits us. And so it's a delicious meal that we can have. This is an 8-course meal. We can have it anytime we want. You can make it 9-course. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It could be 10. It could be 5. It could be 3. Whatever you want. Now, you have a handout that's going to give this to you, but let me just go through our menu. This is one we wrote. We said the greatest thing in our relationship, in our marriage, in our friendship, in our parenting is that we honor each other. Second, we want to understand each other's personality strengths and really value those strengths, because this honor weaves through all of these. This is the basis of the whole thing. This is the foundation. Our communication is built on honor. Anger. Hey, let's keep anger out of our house. What do we have to do to keep anger out? So we wrote a little paragraph, what we're going to do to keep anger out. Fits us. It's our menu. Meaningful touch. How many times does she need to be touched? Just this last week, we were updating our menu. I said, how often? She said, I need regular hugs and kisses. Regular. What does that mean? We have to get down and find out. For us, you may need 20 a day. Another person may need 5 a day. Each one is different. Communication. How much do we need? What kind do we need? Communication. Bonding experiences. We do things together. This is kind of a bonding experience in a lot of ways, having my whole family here. Finances. What about our spending, giving, saving, all those things? We have an agreement on that. And then our spiritual life, which is a vital area of our marriage. And so we have this agreement that we have written that fits us. In a sense, it's like our constitution of our family. Now, when we first started this, we were helped to understand this by a number of experts in the country that have written on it. And some of the cities that we lived in, I actually talked to some of the people that really get into this on a professional level. And they helped me. A very professional pediatrician helped us with our children. We got our kids together and we wrote our first menu when they were really small. And we were told how effective this, because we had tried various things. And I mean, for us, even though so many things, we tried points that if they got so many points, they lost their allowance. And I couldn't remember the things half the time. And I did more of the violation than they were doing at times. And it was real confusing. It didn't make sense. And so we got this system. This was the best for us. And we've seen it's the best for marriages. When I'm involved in helping a young couple get married, I say the first thing you've got to do is write your own menu. What do you need? And what do you want to feel in that relationship? Write it out. And then it's in writing. Now, here's what we did. We got our kids together, and what it developed within us. In fact, I'm just going to mention 3 things it does when you have your own menu. First thing it does is it brings you into unity. There's terrific power and strength and consistency when you're united on a course of action that you all believe in and everybody's committed to. See, my kids wrote this with us. And when a young couple without kids write it, it's theirs. It's both the husband's and the wife. When friends get together and they want to stay friends a long time, what do we want from each other? And you write it out. A lot of people don't think about doing this, but people help me understand it. So we wrote ours out. We had like 6 things that we did, like how do you obey mom and dad when we tell you not to go out in the street, and why you don't want to go out and play with the traffic. And we had some things about obeying mom and dad. We had some things about cleaning up your room, chores, manners, honor. Now, if I had to do it all again, of course, I put honor at the top, but this is the way it was when they were growing up. And then last, they had to have 3 character qualities they agreed before they dated. They were little kids when they signed this. It was great. So that when they got to the age where they were starting to get close to dating, they'd say, can I date? Can I date? And we'd say, well, remember you agreed that these 3 things need to be there. Oh, yeah. So they'd always say, am I ready? Am I ready? And, of course, I started dating when I was in 3rd grade, so I thought they were ready when they were in the 3rd grade, but they seemed mature. Anyway, but then what we were told is that you can put consequences. You know, in a menu when it says no shirt, no shoes, no food? See, there's rules in a menu. So we had rules. These were like rules or our love contract with each other, things that we met needs. So we had the kids list about 50 things they'd be willing to lose for 24 hours if they violated one of these things. And we had a meeting every night for over 3 years at our dinner table where we had this little chart on the wall, menu on the wall, and we would just go down it and see how we all did. And then I said, okay, kids, which thing, do you guys agree with this? Yeah, they signed their little name. We love this, they said. This makes our family in order. It brings unity. So I said, okay, now which of these 50 things that you'll be willing to do without that are sort of like punishment or consequences would you be willing to have? And so I can remember when Greg, Greg's kind of like this, but he said, I say if we violate the first one, no dinner for a month. Kids are harder on themselves, actually, than parents will be. And I said, oh, no dinner for a month. That sounds pretty cruel. I don't think I could do that. And I said, well, but maybe no dinner for one night. Just say, if you do that. Okay, that's pretty weak, but okay, no dinner for one night. So he was the first one to violate that particular rule in the menu. So he was in the next room salivating while we were eating. And during dinner, Mom said, this is punishment to me. It's not punishment to him. I'm the one's hurting. I don't think this is a good consequence. And I said, I don't like it either. It makes me feel real uncomfortable. So we had a system that if we came up against one of the consequences that we didn't like, we could have a meeting immediately and revise it. So I said to the kids at the table, hey, do you like this rule? They said, no, we don't like this consequence at all. I said, Greg, do you like this consequence? He said, no, I hate it. I said, come on in. So then during the meal, we picked a new one so that he had to have that one that night. And so we didn't just throw things out so they didn't have anything, but they revised it right on the spot, which is flexible, which is healthy, because too much control is unhealthy. And so our menu that we had also helped us, and it could be with friends or marriage or anything, it helped us concentrate and put out in front of us our most important values. They were right in front of us all the time on the wall so we could see them every day, right in the kitchen wall. What was the most important thing to us as a family was honor. Remember the first video where we said that you stamp Stradivarius right on someone's forehead because that's how valuable people are? Well, that was the biggest thing to us. Even though it was the 5th one in our menu, we could have moved that up any time and have since they've grown. But honor was the best. So when my kids were little, we'd be driving through town or whatever, and I'd just say right out in the blue, what's the greatest thing in life? And they'd say, Dad, it's honor, Dad. But I was always reminding them of honor, always saying honor, honor. It just was constantly coming out of my mouth because we had it in writing. One time we used to do this a lot. We go to a motel. So one time the boys started jumping on the bed. And I said, hold it. I said, what are you guys doing right now? They said, we're jumping on the bed. I said, whose bed is this? They said, I don't know. I said, it's not mine. Are you honoring these people's bed or dishonoring them? We're dishonoring. I said, what's the greatest thing in life? Honor. See, it was their rule. So I said, hey, it's not my bed. If you want to jump on the bed, you got to ask the owner's permission, not me. You know, they did it every time. They'd go back to the front office and they'd ask the manager, can we jump on your bed? And every time they'd come back and say, he said yes. So they'd be jumping on him. Mom and Dad would be standing there as spotters so they didn't get hurt, break their neck. But it always gave us continual and consistent reminders of the greatest things in life. And we used it continually. Third thing it did is that this written menu, it becomes the policeman in your home or in your relationship. Because when you have it in writing, see, I never do any business deals, especially with a relative, unless I have everything in writing, right? How many of you have ever been in any kind of a mess with a friend or a relative in a business deal? Raise your hand, okay? Look at the people. A lot of that is, he raised your hand, I saw that. A lot of people get into trouble because they don't put it in writing. If you have it in writing, when I do a contract in a book, I have to have it in writing. Because I can't remember what I said 2 or 3 years later. But when it's in writing right on the wall, it calms things down. I did a business deal with my brother one time, and the contract became the policeman. We never had a conflict with it. And yet I know he was in conflict with other people because he didn't have things in writing. So we had it in writing. We had these 5 or 6 things on the kitchen wall and continually went over it. And I remember the night that when Michael was about 4 years old, we were going down the list and we got to the cleaning one. And so we said, Mike, how's your room today? And he said, great. Everything was always great with Mike. Oh, it's great. My room's spotless. And Mom said, Mike, just before dinner, I looked at your room. It was supposed to have been finished before dinner or something like that. And so she said, I looked and it wasn't done. He says, no, I know I cleaned it up, Mom. She says, well, why don't we just go look? So we all got up and walked into his room, and there it was, a mess. And he went, I thought I cleaned this up. So we came back to the table and marked the little thing, and whatever the consequence was for 24 hours, that's what he was willing to give up. And Carrie says to him, Mike, do you know what night this is? Because the consequence was no television for 24 hours. And they picked this. And she said, this is Little House on the Prairie night. And Mike goes, oh no, of all the days not to do my room. We're all silent. And he says, I don't care, there's too much sex in that program anyway. We were hoping he didn't even know what he was talking about. So that's the value, because he had became the policeman. We were free to hug. We were saying, bless your heart, no TV tonight. You sweet thing. And they say, why did I sign this? And there were times that when Greg was like 10, 11, 12, he would come and say, you know what, I don't like this menu idea. He'd say, you know what, I was a little kid when you started this. I think that you've taken advantage of kids as an adult. He said, I think we ought to change this. And I'd say, do you want to change some part of this? Yeah, I'd like to change some part of it. Which part? Well, I don't know. I'll give it some thought. He never came up with anything. But if he had wanted to, I would have been more than happy to get us all together, talk about it, be flexible. We threw things out that didn't work, but the menu saved us over and over again. Cut down on even the need to ever even think about spanking, because it became the policeman. And it was in writing, right in front of all of us. So that's the second thing. First one was that drive-through talking. The way you get your menu written the most effectively is to do the drive-through talking so you really understand each other. Third one I want to mention that we used to use from time to time, and you can do this in friendship, marriage, parenting, anything you want. Do it at the job as a break if you want. We call it well done praise, or a food fight. There's a better way to say it probably. What we would do for 60 seconds is we would pick on one particular member of the family, and all of us for 60 seconds would barrage them with praise. Anything we could think of and as much as we could think of. It was just overwhelming. You'd sit there, you'd go, oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, I believe that one. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Now, and sometimes you have to police that, because honor was the key, and praise is positive. It's honor. It's expression of honor. But Greg would say things like, Mike, you don't sweat bad for a little kid. And we'd say, Greg, this is only positive things. Well, Dad, I can't think anything positive about him. I'd say, Greg, let's start all over again. We'll start the clock again. This is only positive things. See, and he just would get our, goat like that from time to time. But you have to regulate it. And when you can actually start it, it's fun. And it's very enriching, because you concentrate on what's really positive. We had a fun time doing it. I remember interviewing years ago in written interviews, when I would ask women, how often do you need to be praised by your husband? And I was amazed to read these comments, as often as he wanted to praise me. Because a lot of women would say, I have a bottomless capacity to be praised. So don't worry about praising a person too much. Some people think, well, if we praise them too much, they'll get a big head, they'll get conceited. Just the opposite is true. If they aren't praised and they don't feel valuable, that's when they appear to be conceited. So you really can't overdo it if it's genuine, meaningful praise. The next one, real important. This is the one that you'll see me using from time to time here because I'm trying to communicate with you. Is it important to get your husband's attention and full attention before you say something that's really important to you? If you want to go to the 5th level of intimacy, you want him to know and understand your feelings. You want him to really feel and understand your needs. So you need his full concentration, right? You want him to be interested in what you're about to say. This next one is called the salt principle or the thirst principle. In other words, and this is really important for the wives, but it's important for all of us, obviously, for men. But see, generally speaking, in most marriages of the world, when you want to have a conversation at home, almost always, unless the wife is angry, she'll enter into conversation with you. But it's not as normal and as regular for the husband to enter into a conversation with the wife. It's just naturally harder for us to connect verbally than it is for women. And that's been proven in study after study. So that since that's reality, then I usually encourage women to learn the SALT principle. And the SALT principle is don't say something to your husband until he's thirsty for it. Until he can hardly wait to get this information so his attention is on you and focused in on you and there's interest there. You know the old story, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? No, that's not true. If you dump a lot of salt in his oats before you get him to the water, when you get him to the water, he can hardly wait to drink. Lap that up. And see, that's really what you're doing with your husband. You're dumping salt on him before you actually give the information. If you just, and I'll give you some examples so it makes sense more than it maybe is right now. Here's how this worked. My wife one time came up to me and said, I've talked to Greg's teacher today, and I found out that he's not doing well in reading and having difficulty in spelling. And the teacher said that part of his problem is he hasn't developed his hand-eye coordination well enough. I said, wow. And she said, that's a real serious thing, the teacher said. Now see, she has my interest. Serious. It could cost us a lot of money in the future. A lot of money in the future? Yeah, because we're going to have some tutors. And so the best thing she said to do is nip it now. And I said, gosh, that does sound like the best thing. She said, I've been thinking about it, and I think it would be good if you're interested to start playing catch with Greg on a regular basis so he can develop that hand-eye coordinator. Football, you mean? Yeah. Hey, saving money in the future, helping my kid. Hey, where's the football? So I started instantly. And so he became, in high school, he was a receiver on the football team. Not because I trained him or anything like that, but what little I did. But he did. He is a great reader and a good writer and speller today. But that's important. But see, she got my interest first. Have you ever heard the story of Peter Cartwright? He used to be a circuit riding preacher back in the 1800s. They'd got like several churches, and he'd have a horse, and he'd ride from church to church. And when he got there, they'd tell this small town, that he was there. They'd have a meeting that night. And that's what he did. Well, this one particular town he came to, he was didn't have a church in this town at all, but he was real tired. He was on his horse. So he parked his horse, and he went inside an inn, which was really a bar, pub, and they were having a party and the band, and everybody was boozing it up and dancing and things. But he kind of had a feeling inside, gosh, it'd be challenging to give these people a message, minister to them. Well, I mean, how do you get people in a bar to listen to you? I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So he was sitting thinking about what he was going to do and had his head down, and he felt this warm hand on his, and he looked up, and there was this pretty young woman, and she said, would you be my partner for the next dance? And he said, I'd be honored. And so he went out on the dance floor, and he said something to that woman that was so powerful and heard by several people that she instantly dropped to her knees in expression of belief in God. And it was so powerful and heard by so many people in the room that several people, even in the band, and a number of people responded to his words. It was only a few words. It caused a stir in that room that night. Now that's an example of the SALT principle. So he's saying, so. Isn't it interesting how imbalanced that puts us? Just a simple little story, took seconds to tell, but you want to hear the end to it, right? I'm not going to tell you the end. And the reason I'm going to tell you the end is because I want you to feel this tension the rest of your life. Now, all the people on the video will never hear it. Right after the session, I can tell you. See, I want you to see and feel. See, even it works for little kids. My daughter, Carrie, when she was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8, she came in the house, tears in her eyes, walked right in. I said, "What's wrong, Carrie?" "My friend across the street won't play with me." I said, "Really?" I said, "What do you want?" I'm trying to get her to play with my dollhouse, and she won't play. I said, "Carrie, come here, let me tell you something." I said, "Try this. Next time you're with your friend, go over there if you want to do it now or whatever, but tell her that you bought something new for your dollhouse that is so amazing and it's so interesting. It's so much fun to play with. I'm just loving it. I just enjoy it so much," and then drop it. And have her say, "Well, what is it?" "No, it's over there in the dollhouse," and you change the subject and talk about something, and they'll say, "Well, what is it? I want to know what it is. Can I see it?" "You really want to see it?" "Yeah, I'd like to see it." And so minutes later, I'm in the house, and Carrie comes walking through with her little friend right behind her going, "Dad, way to go." Because, see, if you want someone to listen to you or pay attention, you don't just tell them stuff. I used to do this with stories with my kids. I made up stories, and I'd tell them at bedtime, and they'd be in my arms, and I'd be telling the story, and they'd start to fade off and get real tired, or I thought I was in an interesting part, but they would start to fidget and stuff, and I'd say, "Well, I better stop here." And this worked every time when they were little. And Greg said, "You mean those stories really weren't true?" And I'd say, "I can't go on." And they'd say, "Why?" "Well, I don't know if you guys are old enough to hear what I'm about to say." "Dad, we're old enough." "Tell us." "Well, it's pretty scary." "No, Dad, we can handle it." "Now, maybe I'll think about it tomorrow night." "No, tonight, Dad. Tell us now." Wide awake, glued right on me. And then it gave me enough time to think of what this actually was. So I could tell it. I had to make it up. But if I wanted their attention, I would wait to get their interest. And I did this with things when I wanted to tell them important things when they were in high school. Or I'd just say, "Carrie, I found I was reading an article the other day, Carrie. They said 3 things in there that you can do as a young girl to attract the right kind of boy." And then I dropped it. And Carrie said, "Well, what are those things?" "Oh, we can talk about it. Let's go on a date and talk about it." "No, I want to know right now." Now, if they insist, "Let's do it now, Dad. We don't have to wait for a date." But if they say, "No, let's go on a date and go to dinner or something and talk about it," then it's great. Because when you get there, they say, "Okay, now what were those things?" Then there's interest. They're alert. And it's so much easier than trying to say, "Will you listen to me? I have something important to say to you." That doesn't sound very interesting. Something important. What is it? If you first salt them, drop it out there, and just a little bit of it, and then just drop it. If they bite on it, then you give it. If they lose interest, you can drop it, wait till another time you can salt. Otherwise, they tend to forget it. If you ever said something to your husband and say, "You know, I've said this to you 50 times, you don't seem to remember." See, the interest level wasn't right up there where it was key. If you just dump a lot of salt in his verbal oats, then he'll say, "Yes, give me this information." And you might say that's impossible to do, but I've seen it done over and over and over and over again. So what do we have? We have drive-through talking. We have writing your own menu. We have creating the SALT principle. We have food fight with praise. And next is using emotional word pictures, which, as you know, I believe is the greatest method that I'm aware of to really communicate. Emotional word pictures. That was session 4 in our video series. So you remember hearing it. I'm hoping you're practicing it, viewing this video over and over again, because it is just the best that I know of to really get into the deep feelings of a person and the deep needs of people. And you use them already. Like, you've heard things like this when you meet somebody that's maybe a little off, and you say to your mate, "That person seems 1 taco short of a combination plate." And see, that's a word picture. And the reason it makes sense is because you can see 1 taco short. And there's all types of these kinds of things. But I'm going to try something that I've never done before. But I wanted to do something. Here's a letter from a teenager, about 16 years old, and her father was in the process of divorcing her mom, and the father was already dating another girl, and it was a fairly small town so that they could see Dad with this other person, and it was really tearing this girl up. And the husband and the wife were not getting along at all, and so they didn't know how to solve it, and it seemed hopeless to them, which it usually does, seems hopeless, and sometimes it is totally hopeless and impossible to resolve it with certain people, and I know that, I'm very aware of that. But listen to how this little girl wrote a word picture to her dad and the effect it had on her dad and how it changed. This is the power of word pictures. Now, what she did was she sat on her bed late one night and she wrote this story about how she and her mom and her brother Brian were in a car driven by her mom, and they were coming close to their home, and all of a sudden they see this other car swerving out of control, and they noticed it was their dad at the last minute. And the dad had another person sitting next to him, but the two cars crashed, and it knocked their car into the ditch and into an bank down over an embankment, and they were all thrown out of the car and injured, and a major car accident. Paramedics came, emergency vehicles and so on, and that's the first part of the letter. So let me just finish the letter. She says, "There have been times since that night when I wondered if any of us would make it. Even though we were getting better, we're still all in the hospital. The doctors say I'll need a lot of therapy on my leg. And I know they can help me get better, but I wish it was you who was helping me instead of them." I have a hard time reading this thing every time I read it. "The pain is so bad, Daddy, but what's even worse is that we all miss you so much. Every day we wait to see if you're going to visit us in the hospital, and every day you don't come. I know it's over, but my heart would explode with joy if somehow I could look up and see you walk into my room. At night when the hospital is really quiet, they push Brian and me into Mom's room and we all talk about you. We talk about how much we love driving with you and how we wish we were with you now. Are you all right? Are you hurting from the wreck? Do you need us like we need you? If you need me, I'm here and I love you, Daddy. Your daughter, Kimberly." Whoa. Now, listen to what happened. And I'll read this how we expressed it in one of our books. He got the letter, responded. She was home on a Friday night. Should have been at a football game, but she was home. And she's walking downstairs to get a snack. And there's her dad standing in the front door. She says, "Daddy?" And he says, "Kimberly, how's your leg, honey?" And she says, "My leg?" She says, "I got your letter." "Oh, well, it hasn't been doing very well. I'm sorry I hurt you so badly, Kimberly. You don't know how sorry I am." He was fighting to control his own voice. "Your letter came when I didn't know if I could ever return to the family. I felt like I had already gone too far from all of you to ever return back and try again. But your letter showed me how much pain that I've caused. And to really be honest with you, it made me face the fact that I've been pretty banged up myself in that wreck." And he looked at Kimberly and swallowed hard before continuing, "Is your mother upstairs? I'm not promising anything, but I think we need to get some counseling. There's a lot of things we need to work out." They got back together. And no one really knows how powerful a letter like that can be. But there's something about a word picture where people can feel your pain and your need, that when it hits them just right, if they've been, I don't know whether he'd been in a car accident before and maybe knew the pain of being in the hospital and recuperating, but word pictures, I have watched people stopped and changed just from one word picture. So they're powerful. Well, let's keep going here while we still have some emotion left. And the next method we can use, and I really get excited about, it's a very, very simple method, but we use it all the time. It's rating your meals. Now, I'm not talking about rating your wife's meals. I'm talking about rating life, rating how you feel, rating what you need. I need this 0 to 10. I need like an 8, or I only need like a 3. See, if you understand the rating principle, you can use it for everything. And I saw an amazing thing as my kids were growing up. Norma got so excited about making lunches for Greg while he was in high school. You cannot, I asked him just recently, did you know what you were doing? You know, he kind of smiled. But he would come home after school or after football practice or basketball, and he would say to Mom, I don't know what you did today in my lunch, but I'm telling you, Mom, it was the greatest lunch I've ever had in my life. It was unbelievable. My friends were trying to get it. Mom, thank you. I saw her every morning get up enthusiastically and put that lunch together. I mean, she was more excited about Greg's lunch than any other meal she cooked at all, because there was so much praise involved. But he was like rating her meal. He was saying, Mom, you're a 10. I mean, when you do that, I mean, it's amazing, the power of rating things. But now the opposite is true. If you say, you know, your meal was about a 2 tonight, then that has the opposite effect, and I don't recommend that at all. It's just not the meal area or those kinds of areas. It's more in our relationship needs and feelings. Last method I want to mention, it's not the least, it's a final one, but it's an effective one that we can use. We kept short accounts. We paid our bills instantly. We didn't walk out of the restaurant and people run after us and say, hey, get back here and pay your bill. We paid our bills immediately. What we did is we cleared up offenses instantly. And that was part of that never got written out. It was part of our unwritten system that we had in our family because we discussed it. If I offend you, let's don't go to bed tonight until we clear it up. I interviewed my children a couple of years ago before we revised one of our parenting books. And I said, what was the best thing about the parenting years of our life, and what things would you do differently? And got some great information on what things they're not going to do and what things they are going to do. And I love that type of information, and because I want them to go on with healthy relationships. And they said, they all agreed the best thing was that we kept short accounts. The mom and dad came back to them instantly and said, I was wrong. Would you forgive me? And that's all those years. That's one of the things they appreciated the most. And I mean, we did it different ways and it's creative times. But there was one time when Carrie was about 9 or 10, and she and Norma were in some probably school meeting or something, and it got real long and boring. So Norma put her arm around Carrie just to kind of relax and just something different probably, and just pulled her over. And Carrie just jokingly and just for fun reached over and bit her on the hand right here, but bit her harder than she had anticipated, just playing, you know, as kids do. And Norma jerked her hand back and looked at her and said, that hurt. I can't believe you bit me. You know, so they're having this little conflict right here in this meeting. And so it just went on a little bit, you know, afterwards. And so the next morning, there was a little Post-it note on the mirror in our bedroom, and it said, Dear Mom, I love you so much, and I'm very sorry I bit you, Carrie. And I saw it was posted right there. So when I saw Carrie next, I said, you know, Carrie, I said, it's always interesting to me that you write notes to Mom and never me. And she said, oh, Dad, I write you notes. And I was just joking with her. And so the next morning I get up, and there's a Post-it note up there. And it says, Dear Dad, I love you so much, and I'm sorry I didn't bite you. So we cleared things up. We cleared things up. All of these methods, these are just some of the many methods that are available. These are my favorite ones. So you can use these methods and play this video over and over again so you can practice and become more skilled at doing that drive-through talking and making your own menu and doing the bombardment and the food fight and all those things. But your goal is, and our goal is, to move through the first three in all your good relationships that you want to develop and move down to that fourth one where you're finding out what they need and what they feel. Fourth is what they feel, and fifth is what they need. So I encourage you to do this, get richer and richer in it, because I know how healthy it is for your marriage and all your relationships. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I enjoyed giving it. And now that you've seen the various methods of communication and you saw the 5 levels of intimacy, let me encourage you not to ever settle for the first 3 levels of intimacy. I mean, go to the 4th and the 5th area. Share your feelings. Discover each other's needs. I mean, keep there and watch your relationship come alive and your enjoyment of the relationship come alive. Now, the next session that we get into is a session that will help you stay more in the intimate area, because oftentimes we are blocked from being intimate with another person because we have too much anger. Well, the next session, we're calling it treasure hunting. Anything that's happened to us that's been painful, a trial, a difficulty, how to turn those tragedies that we experience into something positive in our life, and that actually drains away our anger. We're going to give you 5 very specific things you can do anytime you get hit with a trial or painful experience. Or you can use your memory of painful things when you were young to do the same 5 things. And what you'll find is that you'll start seeing the anger draining away from your life. You'll start seeing your own self-esteem going higher and higher and higher. You'll actually start learning how to develop more of a loving character, because we'll show you how to treasure hunt your trials to get that loving character. So this is one of the most important sessions that I know of, because you can use it for coming out of any unhealthy past. I'm excited about you getting this session. I can remember the time that I was in Florida speaking, and these people said, would you like to stay at our home instead of a hotel and have home-cooked meal and everything? I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So they said, well, we're gonna be gone, so we're gonna be a little bit late, but we want you to come, and we'll leave the front door open and just go right in and make yourself at home. Here's the map. And I thought, what a great idea. So I went to their house, got there about 10 o'clock, they weren't home, and tried the front door, and it was locked. And I tried a couple of the windows, and they were locked. And I looked around to see if the neighbors thought I was breaking in, and then I thought, well, I'll just go around the back. So I tried to find the gate, and there was the gate, big fence, and I opened up the gates night now, and the moon is out, so you can just see a little bit. And I get about 10 feet in there to go to the back door, and here comes this humongous dog straight at me. Big, hairy thing coming straight at me, just, and I look and I go, oh no, I'm dead. I'm dying right here in this guy's backyard. And it goes, slides right into my feet. It starts licking me, and I say, nice doggy. Well, but you talk about the chemicals being pumped into my body as he was heading to me. It only takes seconds for the whole body to go, uh-oh, big trouble, death, get ready, dilate the eyes. That's what happens to us in a crisis. Now, in real life, that kind of thing can happen to us. We can bring that on ourselves by going, oh, worst thing that ever happened to me. I can't believe this. See, we actually pump those things in. The reason I don't do that with me now is because I know that something's good is going to come out of this. So I don't have to have these extreme thoughts. If anything, I have I can't do it immediately when it's a real big trial. But in a few minutes or hours, I can start treasure hunting, and which we'll get to in a minute. Number 3 is avoid the blame game. As soon as we get into blaming, well, I'm unhappy because of this, or this has happened to me, and I can't stand that. I have a good friend who he was an All-American football player in high school, and he was recruited by a major university, and the coach actually came to his town, met with his family, and they said, you're going to be an All-American college, you're going to play pros, you're the best I've ever recruited, you're going to start, you're going to do everything. He gets to this major university, and he doesn't start. And the coach messes with him and plays another person who was a double All-American. And so they had to fight, they had to vie against each other with competition. And that was part of the strategy of the coaches, is put them in conflict with each other, and we're going to win. And they had a great team. But it made this player, my friend, so angry that there were times when he wanted to go injure this coach. In fact, during one of the practices, he actually ran onto the field to grab the assistant coach. And he was going to try to do some major, they're strong at that time. And the players grabbed him and held him off. But he was really going to do this because he was blaming his lack of success on the coaches. And I was told this, and I was promised that, and I can't believe they're not following through. And all this time, of course, he was raised by a father who he hated, basically. There was very little relationship. He was very abusive. His father used to beat him up, and he told me stories about him kicking him into the corner of the cupboard in the kitchen, got him in there and just pound him right in, and pretty damaging things. So here's a man who's got all the reason in the world to blame, but he leaves the university. In fact, the coach set him up to play for the Bears. And he literally thought the coach was trying to mess with his brain because that was the time the Bears weren't winning anything. And had he gone there, he probably could have replaced a couple of those running backs that left the Bears at that time, but he didn't do it. He went to the New England Patriots instead, and then there was problems in that area. But so he had all kinds of reasons to blame. If they would have given me more time, I could have been a famous pro football player. All those thoughts, I'm sure. But what he did was face and take responsibility for his own life. And then he began to treasure hunt, began to change, and began to see the value in what happened to him. And today, if you met him, you would not know that he ever had a time in his life where he ever blamed. I mean, he is the happiest person I know. Hugs everybody. He warm, relational. But guess what he has? A great relationship with his dad. His dad lives actually in their home. Loves his dad. Great time. But guess what's even more amazing? Guess of all the players this coach had in his career, the only one that ever hugs him is this one player. He goes back and sees him from time to time. In fact, when he was in the hospital not long ago, this one football coach was calling him almost every day and talking to him up to an hour. Why? Because this player has a good relationship with him, hugs him, tells him he loves him. All because he took responsibility and because he started treasure hunting and not blaming. And in fact, he didn't even play on the championship Peach Bowl team when this school played. He'd already graduated and gone on. But the coach loves him so much, and you can imagine what they were like at the university. They hated each other. But he likes him so much today that he invited him to the 20-year reunion of the Peach Bowl celebration and wanted him to be in the parade for the Peach Bowl celebration and had the announcer call him out of the stands to stand with the team so they could have a team picture of the Peach Bowl players. He wasn't in the Peach Bowl. He'd already graduated. He said, "Coach, remember, I wasn't here. I don't care. Get out of here. You got to be in this picture. Do we want him in this picture, team?" They said, "Yes, get him out here. We don't want the picture." Can you imagine? But that relationship came out of him reversing it, going back to the coach, and developing a loving relationship instead of blaming. Very successful today in everything he does.